Okay. So the premise of the session is that setting up an effective sharing platform for your resource can benefit the whole team. So, I mean, I'm guessing that you're both tutors and therefore it would be resources for teaching with, but obviously if you're in an admin position, you can also use Teams for that as well. That's exactly what Teams is designed for. I would suggest storing and labelling by topic so that you can create a pool of your own resources that can be edited quickly by yourself and by your colleagues. This is how we work in the Innovate team, and it works really well for us. So in this session, we'll have a look at setting up a resource library in Teams. Move on. So first of all, a quick mention of Teams and how it works with SharePoint. So whenever you create a new team, it creates a new SharePoint site, which is essentially the back end of Teams. So Teams is kind of like a front end interface for a SharePoint site. And a SharePoint site is kind of like a shared drive. You could replace a shared drive with it, but it's kind of like a communal OneDrive, which isn't particularly owned by any one person. So Teams becomes the front end of this, which is why it's kind of perfect for sharing files. So essentially you can build up a catalogue of files within the SharePoint, but then you can highlight items in that SharePoint using Teams. So the files can then be accessed via SharePoint or via Teams. So if you're searching, it makes sense to look through Teams, whereas if you're adding a lot of resources at any one time, you might find it easier to work through SharePoint. It's exactly the same thing that you're just accessing in two different ways. And the way that SharePoint works is that for each channel that you make in your team, it sets you up a new SharePoint folder. And as I've said, the files can be uploaded en masse via SharePoint and then accessed through Teams. They kind of work together. Let me just show you an example of that so you can see what I mean. So this is I've mocked up this. I work at Scarborough Tech, which we shorten to STEC. So if this was the STEC's maths team, of which we've got a few tutors who all teach maths, and I've called it resources and support. So this is a new team that we've set up, and I would add every member of the kind of like maths team to this. Then the channels that are set up are general, decimals, fractions, etc., etc. If we look in the Files tab at the top of the general channel, you will see that the folders that have happened in the Documents section correspond exactly with the channels that I've created. So when you save things to a channel, or when you put things in a folder for that channel, they will be accessible within that channel, if that makes sense. So they kind of correspond like that. It's not what I need. Where's my presentation? Oh, it's on here. So Teams and posts. So let's have a quick look at adding a post and adding an announcement. So I would suggest that you would add posts to a channel to highlight the content in the files or to prompt a conversation about them. So let's have a look how that might happen in Teams. So going back to my team, I have some content in one of these that I've just posted. There we go, a factor of 10. I think I've already highlighted that one. So maybe in the past papers. So I've got some past papers which I've uploaded to the past papers channel. So now when I go to that channel in Teams, there's nothing, no one actually knows that they're there. They would know they were there if they were thinking, I wonder if there's any past papers, I'll go and have a look. But if you just added some new content, you might want to add a new conversation. So you would just click on the thing here, and in this channel here relates to what's in. So, you know, something as basic as added new content would help. I'm telling you how to do something you already know. I understand that. It's just more the kind of like the concept of why you would do it. If we look in decimals, you see here that I added some content to my decimals file, you know, and then you can use GIFs and other ways just to make it more accessible and try and encourage some kind of conversation with the other members of your team. We tend to, when we set up sites like this within the Tech Partnership, we usually set up a support section as well, which we always use the same name for, which is support and social, I think. And then we agree, it's a channel where you can ask questions so that you never really feel that within the team you're on your own with any job that you're doing. And we agree that this is casual, and also you can tag people in this channel and try and help other people when they add something. So we tend to, if we look at how that would work, I have my support and social channel. And within this, I know there's nothing added here, we would put at, and if you at the channel, and so the name of the channel, it will be there in the list to pick off. It will then ping this to everybody who has got notifications switched on for that channel. How can I teach fractions? Hopefully you're asking something more complicated than that as a maths tutor, but you can ask the question there and that will ping out to all of the other maths tutors and they should be able to answer that question. And as you can see, it creates kind of like a support database then on here of little questions that might be asked that other people can then refer to. And we do tend to keep ours as casual as we can because it is just within our team and it would just be within your team. Staff notebooks can also be added to your team. So if you add a staff notebook to the team, it will pick up the permissions from the team, and it's quite a good place for casual planning, like brainstorming and posting videos, etc. So we use these a lot within our teams. And you'll see that I've added it. If I go back to my general channel, it's one of the additional tabs up here. You just click on this plus here and go to add a staff notebook. Because it's a staff team, it will know what you're looking for. And it becomes a OneNote attached to your team. You can use it external to Teams within OneNote if you want to. Or you can use it, it's always there attached to the team so you know which one it is and where it is. The most important space within a OneNote for use on a team like this is a collaboration space, which is where everyone can, you know, can write and read, and you would add new pages or new sections within the collaboration space according to what you need. So if you've got a project going on, you could add a page for it. I don't know, training day, notes, just have it as a place where you can all add things in and talk about it. So just a collaboration space really, and that all saves automatically because it's Office 365 obviously. So within the collaboration space of the OneNote, you can type, draw, dictate or record. You could even, if you used OneNote with your students a lot, you could create activity pages that could be shared across OneNotes to other, you know, for people to send out to their students via their OneNotes, if that would help. Then just a quick mention of notifications, views, tagging and pinning. So each channel can have different notifications set for you, and you can tag the channel as I demonstrated before if you want everyone to see the notifications. You can change your view to list view if that helps on your, I'll show you how to do that in a minute. And you can pin, then when you're in list view, you can pin any useful channels to the top of Teams. So let's have a look at how to manage that. So if you want to talk to, when you're in a channel, if you want to tag someone, you obviously use the @ key. So just tag myself because I'm in this. Oh, it won't let me tag myself, quite right. You would do the @ whatever it is, and this I'm going to tag the entire team, but you could tag, if you've got anybody attached to your team, you will be able to @ them, and that sends them a push notification that will come up into their activities on Teams as soon as they log in. Whatever you want to ask them. And let's have a little look at the channel settings. So the notifications for each channel will be under these three spots here. And it's the first thing. So you personally, as a member of the team, can change your settings for this. So the general channel by default has all activity for every member, but you can change that if you want to. And then if I look at one of the other channels, you'll see that it's set up slightly differently, in that on this one it's post, replies and mentions, so it's not everything that happens, so it's generally just when you've been mentioned on it. But if there's a channel that's of particular importance, like the support and social, where you want everyone to help, it's best to set this up so that it's all activities like I've done here, so that everybody will get that message if someone's in trouble and needs a little bit of help, kind of thing. So do play with the notifications, because it really helps you manage what's happening within Teams for your experience of Teams. If in Teams itself you change your view to, so you just need to look for this little cog. You can switch your view to the list view here. Fine. You'll see that your teams become a list. I've got thousands of teams. So find the one that I want. This is the one that I want, and I'm particularly interested in this support and social because it's the one that I'm going to be able to help people with. So if I want, I can then pin that one to the top of my list by choosing the pin. And then when I go to the top of this list here, it will have pinned this up here within my pinned channels, which means that it will go bold when there's something happening there that I might want to engage with. Oh, and that's my training code. I'm going to come back now. I've put this in the chat as well, so you can probably get it, or you can copy it there, and that's for the Microsoft Education Centre if you're collecting training codes from there. And that was just a very quick run through this idea, so we'll just see if anybody's got any questions about that. Has anybody got anything they'd like to add? Has anybody done this before and set up anything like this for their team? How do you share your resources within your area?
We both work in the admin side. We're not tutors at all.
Oh, sorry. I should have asked that before I started. But
we do deal with resources, but we're much less active on the front facing with students, and it's more about what are we doing for staff. I don't know about Rebecca, but I'm starting to think long term. If we keep the same team year upon year upon year and just add people, is it just going to eventually end up like a jumble sale? I don't know what the best foot forward is with that, because, you know, the first year your team's empty, you put stuff in and the posts make sense and they go with it. By the time you've got like 20 posts and your fresh person starts, it's a lot to plough through.
I think the thing with Teams is it's a little bit organic in that it's a bit like Facebook. If you think about the Facebook feed that you get, there's no planning it. It's not like the people at Facebook think this is what we're going to put on Facebook for the next year and plan it. They just let it happen naturally. And I think that is what the kind of like the post section of Teams is recreating, in that the posts kind of like have a limited time span. And if you feel like there's something that should be on the post section and it's got moved up, just add it again further down, because it's, you know, and let it create this long chain of information. The bit where you need to be organised is within the file section, really. But that does then make more sense in that the back end of Teams, which is SharePoint, is just like a shared drive, so you can have that as organised as you like. But let the front end work more more organically, as it were. Don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. I do have one quick question. If I created the folder in SharePoint, would that actually create channel in the team?
No, it wouldn't. No.
No.
So, but you can have whatever folders you want in SharePoint, and it won't. If you, I think you will have to have a folder for each of the channels because they're created automatically, and that's because if in the post section of the channel someone attaches a file, the actual file will end up in the that channel. If that makes sense. You can change it in the settings. So if it's something that is a very distinct amount of information that you want them to have, you can make it so that they can't attach files to the channel and then they won't go in those folders. That makes sense. So you can kind of like switch that feature off. Yeah, you might want to look at, you can actually create SharePoint pages which you can then add to Teams. So a SharePoint page is essentially like, it's a different way of doing a front end to SharePoint. It's a little bit like a web page where you can have links to what's happening in SharePoint. And sometimes that, if you're just looking for that extra level of navigation, that's a really interesting way of doing it. It's a little bit more complicated than just using Teams, but it does mean that if you want to have a page of information saying, if you're looking for this, it's here. If you're looking for this, it's here. So kind of like a signposting thing, which obviously will then be a permanent fixture. Whereas the chat is, you know, a chat that's just moving on all of the time. Because I do realise that there's the channels, then there's the tabs across the top. And that's the whole navigation in Teams. So adding in the SharePoint page will add in that extra level.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, then. We got any? I hope you found that useful. As I was going through it, I was thinking, I'm not sure how useful this is because it's so subjective as to how you want to set up Teams to use things. But I just think it's interesting to see what other people are doing. And we've recently created a new massive team for Innovate for the Tech Partnership, which is quite a big organisation, just to run all the information that we run in our entire team. So it's been an interesting exercise about how to be organised in teams, because as you say, with it being such a free-for-all and organic, it can get messy quite quickly.
It does. The bit I found really interesting was I hadn't realised I could list my teams all at once and then pin channels from different ones so they stayed with me. I hadn't realised that, so that's really useful. It
is. I like it. I like, most people use that view. It makes you feel, I do like the pinned idea, and particularly when you start, if you get into using your channels for other things like attaching them to forms, so that, you know, if people are sending you information and you want to know if someone's participated, that's really useful to know, you know, at a glance what's happening. And it means that you don't actually need to receive the notifications for those. You can just wait for them to go bold. So it's kind of like, you can go in and check what's happening as opposed to having the push notifications, which can be quite intrusive.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
All right, then. All right, well, we'll get going then, and thank you for coming along. That's been great. Okay.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.